She sold her own daughter to save her, believing it was her only choice. For 20 years, a mother's heart lived in a prison of regret, while the daughter she gave away lived in a gilded cage of lies. This is the moment they finally meet, and the shocking truth shatters everything. This is not just a story, it's a piece of someone's hidden pain, quietly waiting to be heard. In today's story, we dive into a moment that can change everything, in the most unexpected way. Before we begin, where are you listening from? Canada? The US? Norway? Let us know in the comments, because stories may begin anywhere, but they connect us all. Stay with us until the very end, because sometimes what breaks your heart can also heal it. And if you believe stories can change lives, hit subscribe. Join our journey. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment. Your voice matters here. She sold her only daughter to a rich woman who could not have children. But what happened years later left everyone in shock. Hello and welcome back. Please do well to subscribe, and in the comment section, tell us where you're watching from. As a single mother, Clara had fought for every single moment. Her husband, David, had died suddenly in a factory accident when she was only 25, leaving her to raise 3-year-old Vivien all alone. The accident happened on a rainy Tuesday morning. David had kissed Clara goodbye and promised little Vivien he would bring her a candy bar when he came home from work, but he never came home. Now, 3 months later, Clara sat at the table in their tiny kitchen, bills scattered everywhere. The electric bill, the water bill, the rent notice, they all demanded the same thing: pay now or lose everything. For the 10th time that day, Clara counted the money in her purse, $337. That was all that remained in her entire world. From the doorway, Vivien said softly, "Mama, I'm hungry." Her little dress was getting too small, and her shoes had holes in them. Clara's heart felt like it was breaking. She opened the kitchen cabinets, but they were empty. The refrigerator held nothing either. "Come here, my sweet girl," Clara said, trying to smile. She pulled Vivien onto her lap and hugged her tight. "We'll figure something out." But deep down, Clara had no idea what to do. She had looked for jobs everywhere, asked her neighbors for help, and even gone to the church, but they had no money to give her either. Their landlord, Mr. Johnson, had been coming to their door every day for the past week. Each time, his voice grew louder and angrier. "Clara," he had shouted just yesterday, "you have 3 days to pay me $800 or you, and that little girl will be sleeping on the street." Clara had closed the door and cried quietly in the bathroom so Vivien wouldn't see her tears. That night, after putting Vivien to bed, Clara sat at the kitchen table, looking at all the bills. She had no money for food, no money for rent, no money for anything. She picked up the photo of David that sat on the table. In the picture, he was smiling, holding baby Vivien in his arms. "David," she whispered to the photo, "I don't know what to do. I'm so scared. I can't take care of our little girl. I'm failing her every single day." The next morning, Clara woke to the sound of knocking on the door. Her heart jumped. Was it Mr. Johnson coming to throw them out? She opened the door slowly and saw a woman she had never met before. The woman wore expensive clothes and jewelry that sparkled in the sunlight. Though she had a big smile on her face, something about her eyes made Clara feel nervous. "Hello," the woman said in a sweet voice. "My name is Stella Williams. I heard about your situation. May I come in? I believe I can help you." Clara looked at the woman's fancy car parked outside, then back at her empty kitchen. She had nothing left to lose. "Please come in," Clara said, opening the door wider. Vivien peeked out from behind Clara's leg, curious about the pretty lady with the shiny dress. "And this must be Vivien," Stella said, bending down to look at the little girl. "She's even more beautiful than I was told." When Stella said those words, Clara felt something strange in her stomach. How did this woman know about Vivien? And what did she mean by more beautiful than I heard? "Please sit down," Clara said, clearing the bills off the only chair they had. "Can I get you some water?" It was all she had to offer. "No thank you," Stella said, sitting down carefully. She looked around the small, empty apartment. "Clara, I know you're having a very hard time since your husband died. I know you can't pay your bills or buy food for your daughter." Clara felt her cheeks grow hot with embarrassment. "How do you know about my problems?" Stella smiled. In a city like Lagos, news travels fast, especially when it's about a young mother trying so hard to take care of her child. Vivien came closer to Stella, fascinated by her pretty jewelry. "Hello, little princess," Stella said to Vivien. "Do you like my necklace?" Vivien nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. She had never seen anything so shiny and beautiful. Stella reached into her purse and pulled out a small candy bar. "This is for you, sweetie." Vivien looked at her mother, asking permission with her eyes. Clara nodded and Vivien took the candy with a big smile. "Thank you, pretty lady," Vivien said, unwrapping the candy quickly. She was so hungry she ate it in 3 big bites. Stella watched Vivien eat and smiled. But Clara noticed that the smile didn't reach Stella's eyes. "Clara," Stella said, turning back to her, "I have something very important to discuss with you, something that could change both of your lives forever." Clara's hands started shaking without her knowing why. "What do you mean?" Stella leaned forward and spoke quietly. I am a very wealthy woman, but God has not blessed me with children. My husband and I have tried for 15 years, but we cannot have a baby. Clara nodded, not understanding where this was going. I have been watching your daughter, Stella continued. She is smart, beautiful, and well-behaved. She deserves so much more than this. Stella looked around the empty apartment. Clara felt a surge of anger. We may be poor, but Vivien is loved. That's what matters. Of course she is loved, Stella said quickly. But love doesn't put food on the table, does it? Love doesn't pay for school or clothes or medicine when she gets sick. Clara looked at Vivien, who was playing on the floor with an empty box because she had no real toys. What are you trying to say? Clara asked, though part of her already knew. Stella took a deep breath. I want to adopt Vivien. I want to give her everything she needs. Food, clothes, education, a big house, and a bright future. And I want to pay you enough money so you can start a new life. The words hit Clara like a punch in the stomach. She felt dizzy and sick. No, she whispered. No, you can't have my daughter. Think about it, Clara. Stella said gently. Right now you can't even feed her. In 3 days, you'll both be homeless. What kind of life is that for a little girl? Clara looked at Vivien again. The little girl was so thin and her clothes were so old. Clara couldn't remember the last time Vivien had laughed or played like other children. I can give her the best schools. Stella continued. She'll have her own room, her own toys, beautiful clothes. She'll never be hungry again. She'll have opportunities you could never give her. But she's my daughter, Clara said, tears filling her eyes. She's all I have left of David. I know this is hard, Stella said, reaching into her purse. She pulled out an envelope thick with money. This is $50,000. It's enough for you to pay all your bills, find a nice place to live and start over. And Vivien will be happy and safe with me. Clara stared at the envelope. It was more money than she had ever seen in her whole life. With that much money, she could solve all her problems. But the cost? I need time to think, Clara said weakly. Of course, Stella said, standing up. But remember, Mr. Johnson will be here tomorrow. And what will happen to Vivien when you're both living on the street? Stella walked to the door, then turned back. I'll come back tomorrow morning for your answer. And Clara, I really hope you'll make the right choice for Vivien's sake. After Stella left, Clara sat on the floor and pulled Vivien close to her. Mama, who was that pretty lady? Vivien asked. Just someone who wanted to meet you. Clara said, her voice shaking. She was nice. She gave me candy, Vivien said happily. Clara held her daughter tighter and whispered, I love you so much, Vivien. More than anything in the whole world. I love you too, Mama, Vivien said, snuggling closer. That night, Clara didn't sleep at all. She sat by Vivien's bed, watching her daughter sleep peacefully, not knowing that tomorrow would change their lives forever. Clara woke up the next morning to loud banging on the door. Her heart was beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. Clara, open this door right now. It was Mr. Johnson's angry voice. Clara looked at the clock. It was only 7:00 in the morning. She quickly woke up Vivien and told her to stay quiet. When Clara opened the door, Mr. Johnson was standing there with 2 big men behind him. Time's up, Clara, he said with a mean smile. Where's my money? Clara's hands were shaking. Please, Mr. Johnson, just give me one more day. I'm expecting some money today. Mr. Johnson laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. I've heard that story too many times. Boys start taking their stuff outside? No, please. Clara begged, falling to her knees. My daughter, she's just a little girl. Where will we go? That's not my problem, Mr. Johnson said coldly. You should have thought about that before. The 2 men started picking up Clara's few belongings, their old clothes, Vivien's broken toys, David's picture. Vivien started crying. Mama, what's happening? Why are the men taking our things? Clara hugged Vivien tight, trying to be strong for her daughter. But inside, she was breaking apart. Just then, they heard the sound of a car pulling up outside. It was Stella's big, shiny car. Stella got out wearing another expensive dress and walked up to the door like a queen. When she saw what was happening, she smiled. Good morning, Clara, she said sweetly. I see you're having some trouble. Mr. Johnson looked at Stella's fancy clothes and jewelry. Who are you, lady? I'm a friend of Clara's, Stella said, pulling out her thick envelope of money. How much does she owe you? Mr. Johnson's eyes got big when he saw all that money. 800 for rent plus 200 for damages. 100,000 total. Stella counted out the money like it was nothing. Here you go, and here's an extra 200 for your trouble. Mr. Johnson grabbed the money and counted it twice. Well, I guess Clara can stay, he said with a big smile. Sorry for the confusion, ladies. The 2 men put Clara's things back inside, and Mr. Johnson left quickly with his money. Clara stared at Stella in shock. Why did you do that? Because I care about you and Vivien, Stella said. But Clara, this is just putting a bandage on a broken bone. What happens next month when the rent is due again? What happens when Vivien gets sick and needs a doctor? Clara knew Stella was right. The problems would just come back again and again. Mama, the pretty lady saved us, Vivien said, running up to hug Stella's legs. Stella bent down and picked up Vivien. Hello, beautiful princess. Did you sleep well? Yes, and I dreamed about candy and toys in a big house, Vivien said happily. Stella looked at Clara meaningfully. Dreams can come true, you know. The Clara felt sick to her stomach. She knew what Stella was doing. Vivien, go play in your room for a minute, Clara said. Mama needs to talk to the nice lady. After Vivien left, Stella sat down at the table. Clara, I paid your rent, but that money came from the envelope I offered you yesterday. Now there's only 49,000 left. Clara's heart sank. She hadn't even agreed to anything, but already she owed Stella money. I didn't ask you to pay my rent, Clara said weakly. I know, Stella said. I did it because I knew you needed help. But Clara, this is exactly what I was talking about. You can't solve these problems on your own. Clara looked toward Vivien's room where she could hear her daughter singing a little song. If I did what you want, Clara said quietly, would I ever see her again? Stella's face became serious. Clara, if you really love Vivien, you'll let her go completely. It would be too confusing for a child to have two mothers. She needs to feel safe and settled in her new life. So I would lose her forever? Clara asked, tears starting to fall. You wouldn't lose her? Stella said gently. You would be giving her the best gift a mother can give a chance at a wonderful life. Clara put her head in her hands and cried. I can't. She's my baby. She's all I have. Clara, look at me, Stella said firmly. Right now, what can you give her? Can you give her food every day? Can you send her to school? Can you buy her medicine when she's sick? Can you keep a roof over her head? Each question was like a knife in Clara's heart because she knew the answer to all of them was no. But I love her so much, Clara whispered. I know you do, Stella said. And because you love her, you want what's best for her, right? Clara nodded, still crying. My husband and I have been trying to have a child for 15 years, Stella continued. We have so much love to give and so much we can provide. Vivien would go to the best schools. She would have everything she needs. She would be happy. The Clara heard Vivien laughing in the next room, but it sounded so far away. I need more time, Clara said. Of course, Stella said, standing up. But Clara, I want you to think about something. Tonight, when Vivien goes to bed hungry again, ask yourself, is keeping her with you really about what's best for her, or is it about what makes you feel better? Those words hit Clara like a punch. Was she being selfish? Was she putting her own feelings before her daughter's needs? After Stella left, Clara sat alone in the kitchen. The Wonnersnausen was gone to pay the rent, but all the other bills were still on the table. The electric company, the water company, the grocery store, they all still wanted their money. Clara opened the refrigerator. It was still empty. She checked the cabinets. Still empty. She looked in her purse. No money left. Mama, can we have lunch? Vivien asked, coming into the kitchen. Clara's heart broke all over again. What? We don't have food right now, baby, but maybe later. Vivien's face fell. I'm really hungry, Mama. My stomach hurts. Clara knelt down and hugged Vivien. I know, sweetheart. Mama's trying to figure something out. That afternoon, Clara took Vivien to the park so she wouldn't think about being hungry. They sat under a tree and watched other children play. Clara noticed how thin Vivien had gotten. Her clothes were hanging loose on her small body. Other children in the park had nice clothes, good shoes, and toys to play with. Their mothers brought them snacks and drinks. Clara had nothing to give her daughter except love, and for the first time she wondered if love was enough. Mama, look at that little girl, Vivien said, pointing to a child about her age who was playing on the swings. The girl was wearing a pretty pink dress and new shoes. Her mother was pushing her on the swing and they were both laughing. She's pretty, Clara said sadly. I wish I had a dress like that, Vivien said quietly, and shoes without holes. Clara felt like someone had reached into her chest and squeezed her heart. Her daughter was only 3 years old, but already she knew they were different from other families. Already she knew they had less. That evening, Clara managed to find enough coins in their apartment to buy one small piece of bread. She gave it all to Vivien and watched her eat it slowly, trying to make it last. Aren't you going to eat, Mama? Vivien asked. I'm not hungry, Clara lied. Her stomach was growling, but seeing Vivien eat was more important. After Vivien fell asleep, Clara sat by the window looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Stella was in her big house with her husband, waiting for Clara's answer. Clara picked up David's picture and whispered, What should I do? What would you want me to do? But David couldn't answer. Clara was all alone with the hardest decision any mother could ever make. Tomorrow she would have to choose between keeping her daughter and losing everything, or giving her daughter away so she could have everything. The next morning, Clara woke up to Vivien coughing. When she touched her daughter's forehead, it was burning hot with fever. Mama, I don't feel good, Vivien said weakly. Her little voice was raspy and her eyes looked tired. Clara's heart started racing. Vivien was sick and Clara had no money for a doctor or medicine. She picked up Vivien and held her close, feeling how hot her small body was. It's okay, baby. Mama will take care of you, Clara said, trying not to panic. Clara gave Vivien some water and tried to cool her down with a wet cloth. But as the hours passed, Vivien got worse. She was shivering even though she was hot, and she couldn't keep any food down. "Mama, my throat hurts," Vivien whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. Clara knew she had to take Vivien to the hospital, but she had no money. She looked through every drawer, every pocket, every corner of their apartment. She found 2.15. That wasn't enough for anything. Clara wrapped Vivien in a blanket and carried her to the free clinic across town. They waited in a long line with other poor families who also couldn't afford to pay for health care. When it was finally their turn, the nurse looked at Vivien and shook her head. "This child is very sick," the nurse said. "She needs medicine right away and she needs to see a real doctor, not just the volunteer who works here. Please," Clara begged. "I'll pay you back somehow. My daughter is all I have." "I'm sorry," the nurse said sadly. "I wish I could help, but we don't have the medicine she needs here. You need to take her to the big hospital." The Clara carried Vivien to the big hospital downtown. The building was huge and clean with shiny floors and lots of doctors and nurses walking around quickly. At the front desk, a woman in a white coat asked, "Do you have insurance?" "No," Clara said quietly. "Can you pay for the visit today?" I only have 2,000, Clara admitted, feeling ashamed. The woman's face became cold. "I'm sorry, but we can't see patients who can't pay. There's a charity clinic about 10 miles from here. You can try there." "But my daughter is very sick," Clara said, her voice breaking. "Please, just look at her." "I'm sorry. That's our policy," the woman said, already looking at the next person in line. Clara stood there holding Vivien, feeling completely helpless. Around her she saw other families who could afford to pay. Their children were getting help while her daughter suffered. Clara carried Vivien outside and sat on the hospital steps, not knowing what to do. Vivien was getting sicker, and Clara couldn't help her. "Mama, I'm scared," Vivien whispered, holding onto Clara's shirt with her small hands. "Don't be scared, baby. Mama is here," Clara said. But she was terrified too. Just then Clara's phone rang. It was Stella. "Hello, Clara. I was wondering if you've made your decision yet," Stella said in her sweet voice. Clara looked down at Vivien, who was so sick and weak in her arms. "Stella," Clara said, her voice shaking. "Vivien is very sick. She has a high fever and she needs medicine, but I can't afford to take her to the doctor." There was silence for a moment. Then Stella said, "Oh my goodness, where are you right now?" "At the big hospital downtown, but they won't see her because I can't pay." "Stay right there," Stella said firmly. "I'm coming to get you both right now." 20 minutes later, Stella's fancy car pulled up in front of the hospital. She got out and ran over to Clara and Vivien. "Let me see her," Stella said, touching Vivien's forehead. "She's burning up. We need to get her help immediately." Stella carried Vivien into the hospital and suddenly everything changed. When the woman at the front desk saw Stella's expensive clothes and jewelry, she smiled widely. "How can I help you today, ma'am?" "This child needs to see the best doctor you have right now," Stella said, pulling out her credit card. "Money is not a problem." "Of course. Right this way, please." Within minutes, Vivien was in a clean, comfortable room with a kind doctor examining her. The doctor gave her medicine for her fever and throat infection. Nurses brought her juice and crackers. "She'll be fine," the doctor told Stella. "The medicine should help her feel better in a day or two, but make sure she gets plenty of rest and drinks lots of fluids." Clara watched all of this happen like she was in a dream. In just a few minutes, Stella had done what Clara couldn't do in hours of trying. After they left the hospital, Stella drove them back to Clara's apartment. Vivien was already feeling a little better thanks to the medicine. "Thank you," Clara said quietly as they sat in the car. "I don't know how to repay you for this." Stella looked at Clara with kind eyes. "Clara, you don't understand. If Vivien was my daughter, I would never have to worry about moments like this. She would have the best health care, the best doctors, the best of everything." Clara felt tears starting again. "I know. What if this happens again next month or next week?" Stella asked gently. "What if next time it's something more serious and you can't find me to help?" Clara looked back at Vivien, who was sleeping peacefully in the back seat, finally comfortable and safe. "I can see how much you love her," Stella continued. "But sometimes love means making the hardest choice of all. Sometimes love means letting go." That night, after Clara put Vivien to bed with her new medicine, she sat at the kitchen table with all the bills spread out in front of her again. But now she also had the hospital bill, $800 that Stella had paid for them. Clara realized that in just 2 days, Stella had spent over $800 on them. Money that Clara could never repay. Money that showed just how helpless Clara really was. She thought about what had happened at the hospital, how quickly everything changed when Stella walked in, how easily Stella could give Vivien what she needed while Clara could only watch helplessly. Clara went to check on Vivien, who was sleeping peacefully now that her fever was going down. She looked so small and fragile in her little bed. "I love you so much," Clara whispered. "More than my own life. But maybe that's not enough anymore." The next morning, Vivien woke up feeling much better. The medicine had worked and her fever was gone. "Mama, I feel good today," she said with a smile. "Can we go to the park in a little while, sweetheart?" Clara said, trying to smile back. "First, Mama needs to make a phone call." Clara's hands were shaking as she dialed Stella's number. This was the hardest thing she had ever done in her entire life. "Hello, Clara," Stella answered. "How is Vivien feeling today?" "She's better, thank you. The medicine worked." "I'm so glad to hear that." Clara took a deep breath. "Stella, I need to ask you something." "Of course. What is it?" If I let you adopt Vivien," Clara's voice broke and she had to start again. "If I let you take her, will you promise to love her like your own daughter? Will you promise to take good care of her?" There was silence on the other end of the phone for a moment. "Clara," Stella said softly, "I promise you that Vivien will be loved, protected, and given every opportunity to have a wonderful life. She will never want for anything." Clara closed her eyes and felt tears rolling down her cheeks. "And you promise I can't see her again?" "It would be too confusing for her," Stella said gently. "She needs to feel secure in her new life. But Clara, you will always be her birth mother. Nothing can ever change that." Clara looked toward Vivien's room where her daughter was playing happily, not knowing that her whole world was about to change. When would you want to take her?" Clara asked, barely able to say the words. "Today," Stella said quietly. "I think it's better to do this quickly so it's not harder for either of you." "Today?" Clara's heart started beating fast. "But I'm not ready. I need more time to prepare her," to explain. "Clara, there's no easy way to do this," Stella said. "The longer you wait, the harder it will be, and I have everything ready for her. A beautiful room, clothes, toys, everything a little girl could want." Clara felt like she couldn't breathe. Everything was happening so fast. "I'll come by this afternoon," Stella said. "At 300. And Clara, you're doing the right thing. You're being a good mother." After Clara hung up the phone, she sat on the floor and cried harder than she had ever cried before. In a few hours, she would have to say goodbye to her daughter forever. Clara spent the next few hours trying to figure out how to tell Vivien. How do you explain to a little child that you're giving her to someone else? How do you make her understand that it's because you love her, not because you don't want her? At noon, Clara sat down with Vivien on their small couch. "Vivien, sweetheart, Mama needs to talk to you about something very important," Clara said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Okay, Mama," Vivien said, looking up at her with those big trusting eyes. "Do you remember the pretty lady who gave you candy and helped you when you were sick?" "Yes, Miss Stella. She's very nice." Clara's heart was breaking, but she continued. "Miss Stella has a big, beautiful house with lots of toys and good food, and she wants you to come live with her." Vivien looked confused. "But I live with you, Mama." "I know, baby, but Miss Stella can give you things that Mama can't. She can send you to school, buy you pretty dresses, and make sure you're never hungry again." "But I want to stay with you," Vivien said, starting to look worried. "You're my mama." Clara pulled Vivien onto her lap and held her tight. "I will always be your mama, Vivien. Nothing can ever change that. But sometimes mamas have to make very hard choices to help their children. I don't understand," Vivien said, and Clara could see tears starting in her little eyes. "Miss Stella will take very good care of you. She has lots of money to buy you everything you need, and she will love you very much. But what about you?" Vivien asked. "Who will take care of you?" Clara almost broke down right there. Her 3-year-old daughter was worried about taking care of her. "Mama will be okay," Clara lied. "I just want you to be happy and healthy." "Can I visit you?" Vivien asked. Clara closed her eyes and took a shaky breath. "Baby, when you go to live with Miss Stella, it's going to be your new home. You'll have a new life there forever." Vivien's voice was so small and scared. "Forever?" Clara couldn't speak. She just nodded and hugged Vivien tighter. "No," Vivien said, starting to cry. "I don't want to go. I want to stay with you. I don't care if we're poor. I don't care if we don't have food. I just want my mama." Clara was crying too. "Oh, baby, I want you to stay too, more than anything in the world. But I can't give you what you need. What if you get sick again and I can't help you? What if? I don't care," Vivien sobbed. "I just want you." They held each other and cried until there were no more tears left. At exactly 300, they heard Stella's car pull up outside. Clara's whole body started shaking. "Is that her?" Vivien whispered, clinging to Clara. "Yes, baby." When Stella knocked on the door, Clara and Vivien just sat there holding each other. "Clara, it's me," Stella called softly. Clara finally got up and opened the door. Stella was there with a big smile, holding a beautiful new doll and a bag of clothes. "Hello, Vivien," Stella said cheerfully. "I brought you some presents." But Vivien hid behind Clara's legs and wouldn't look at Stella. "She's a little scared," Clara said quietly. "That's normal," Stella said, coming inside. "Vivien, sweetheart, look what I have for you." Stella showed her the doll. It was the most beautiful doll Vivien had ever seen, with long curly hair and a pretty dress. "And look," Stella said, opening the bag. "I brought you some new clothes. See this dress? It's just your size. Despite being scared, Vivien couldn't help looking at the pretty things. She had never owned anything so beautiful. Do you like them? Stella asked gently. Vivien nodded a little, but she still held on to Clara. Clara, have you packed her things? Stella asked. Clara looked around their tiny apartment. What things? Vivien's few old clothes with holes in them. Her broken toys. There was nothing worth taking. She doesn't really have much, Clara said, embarrassed. That's okay, Stella said kindly. She won't need any of those old things anyway. I have everything she needs at home. Clara felt like Stella had just said that Clara's whole life with Vivien didn't matter, that nothing they had shared together was worth keeping. But what about my teddy bear? Vivien asked suddenly. She was talking about a small, old stuffed animal that David had bought for her when she was a baby. It was falling apart, but it was Vivien's most treasured possession. Stella looked at the old dirty teddy bear and made a face. Oh, sweetheart, I have much better toys for you at home. You don't need that old thing. But it was from my daddy, Vivien said, hugging the teddy bear tight. Clara saw the look on Stella's face and realized something terrible. Stella didn't just want to give Vivien a better life. She wanted to erase Vivien's old life completely. She can keep the teddy bear, Clara said firmly. It's important to her. Stella smiled, but her eyes were cold. Of course, if it makes the transition easier. Are you ready, Vivien? Stella asked, reaching out her hand. Vivien looked up at Clara with panic in her eyes. Mama, I changed my mind. I don't want to go. Please don't make me go. Clara knelt down and took Vivien's little hands in hers. Baby, I need you to be very brave for Mama, okay? You're going to have a wonderful life with Miss Stella. You'll go to school, make friends, have toys, and pretty clothes. But I'll miss you so much, Vivien cried. I'll miss you too, Clara whispered. Every single day. But I want you to remember that Mama loves you more than all the stars in the sky. Can you remember that? I love you more than all the stars in the sky too, Mama. Clara kissed Vivien's forehead and stood up quickly before she lost her courage. Take good care of her, Clara said to Stella, her voice breaking. She's the most precious thing in the world, but I will, Stella promised, taking Vivien's hand. Vivien looked back at Clara one more time. Mama, are you sure I can't stay? Clara wanted to scream, stay with me. But instead she said, go on, baby. Be good for Miss Stella. Stella picked up Vivien and started walking toward the door. Vivien reached out for Clara over Stella's shoulder. Mama, Mama, she cried. Clara followed them to the car, tears streaming down her face. Stella put Vivien in the back seat and buckled her seatbelt. Through the car window, Vivien pressed her little hand against the glass. Clara put her hand on the other side, trying to touch her daughter one last time. I love you, Vivien, Clara said. I love you too, Mama, Vivien said, still crying. Stella got in the driver's seat and started the car. As they drove away, Clara ran after the car for a few steps, but she couldn't keep up. She stood in the middle of the street, watching the car disappear around the corner, taking her daughter away forever. Clara walked back to her empty apartment and closed the door behind her. The silence was deafening. For the first time in 3 years, she was completely alone. She picked up Vivien's old dress from the floor and held it to her face. It still smelled like her baby. That night, Clara sat in Vivien's empty room and cried until she had no tears left. She had done what she thought was best for her daughter, but it felt like someone had torn her heart out of her chest. She didn't know that this was only the beginning of her pain. She didn't know that the hardest part was still coming. 2 weeks later, Clara couldn't stand it anymore. She needed to see Vivien just to know she was okay. She took the bus across town to Stella's neighborhood, which was full of big, beautiful houses with perfect gardens and expensive cars. When Clara found Stella's house, she couldn't believe how huge it was. It looked like a palace with tall gates and security guards. Clara hid behind a tree across the street and waited. After an hour, she saw Stella's car pull into the driveway. The gate opened automatically and Clara got a glimpse inside. There was Vivien, but Clara almost didn't recognize her. She was wearing a beautiful white dress and shiny shoes. Her hair was perfectly styled and she looked like a little princess. But something was wrong. Vivien didn't look happy. She wasn't smiling or playing. She just walked quietly next to Stella like she was afraid to make any noise. Clara wanted to run to her, to hug her, to take her home, but she remembered her promise to stay away. The next day, Clara couldn't help herself. She went back to watch again. This time, she saw Vivien playing in the big backyard, but she was playing all alone. There were lots of expensive toys around her, but she was just sitting quietly by herself, hugging her old teddy bear. Clara's heart broke all over again. Her daughter had everything now, but she looked so lonely. For the next month, Clara went to watch Vivien every few days. She told herself it was just to make sure Vivien was okay, but really, she needed to see her daughter to survive. One day, Clara was watching from her usual spot when Stella suddenly appeared beside her. I thought I might find you here, Stella said coldly. Clara jumped up, startled and scared. I was just... You were spying on my daughter, Stella said, her voice like ice. She's my daughter, Clara said, finding her courage. I just wanted to see how she's doing. She's fine. She's adjusting well to her new life. But you lurking around here is not helping her move on. Move on. Clara felt angry now. She's 3 years old. She doesn't understand why her mother abandoned her. You didn't abandon her? Stella said with a cruel smile. You sold her for money. Don't try to make yourself feel better by calling it something else. Those words hit Clara like a slap in the face. It wasn't like that. I was trying to help her. Were you? Or were you just taking the easy way out of your problems? Clara stared at Stella, seeing her clearly for the first time. This woman wasn't kind. She wasn't just trying to help a child in need. She was cruel and manipulative. I want her back, Clara said suddenly.
A mother's impossible choice to give her daughter a better life came to year prison of regret. A daughter raised in lies, never knowing the woman who loved her more than life itself. This is their story, a journey through unbearable loss, to a truth that finally sets them free.